Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host, and I'm going to talk to you about an ongoing battle of words between the head of the Catholic Church, the Pope, and Donald Trump. Donald Trump has unleashed a very strong criticism of the Pope, basically saying he does not like a Pope who disagrees with American president and criticizes an American president. And he also said that it was because Donald Trump was president that Pope Leo became Pope. Pope Leo is essentially an American citizen, originally from Chicago, but I think he is a cardinal from Peru, and is now the head of the Catholic Church, the biggest religious community on earth. While Catholics are the biggest single largest community in the world, they are a minority in the United States, about 22%, or 22, roughly 22%, one-fifth of America's population, around 70 million are Catholics. But they are highly overrepresented in the administration. So let me just quickly run down what has happened with this. Before the current attack by Donald Trump himself, it seems, I think in the month of January, that the Pentagon invited the Vatican's ambassador and basically he told him that the Pope should stop criticizing Donald Trump. And in the event that the Pope will not stop, so basically they were being very obnoxious and aggressive towards the ambassador of the Vatican. You must understand that while the Vatican is where the headquarters of the Roman Catholic Church is located, uh, the Vatican is actually a tiny country. It is a country by itself. Last year, I visited the Vatican, and if you remember, I shared a lot of videos and photographs of the Vatican on my channel. But so technically, the Vatican is a country, and the Pope is a head of state. So for all the talk of secularism, the Pope is like a caliph. He's both head of religion and head of a state. He's not head of all Catholic states, but he's head of the Vatican. And so the Vatican has embassies all over the world, which also double as embassies for the Catholic Church and for the Pope himself, the Holy See, as he's referred to. So there are ambassadors, and so international relations is very much within the purview of the Pope. So to say that the Pope should not talk about international relations, should not talk about war, etc., as J.D. Vance has said, J.D. Vance, in his reaction to the exchange between the Pope and Donald Trump, said the Pope should stick to morality. But that is exactly what the Pope is doing. So let me quickly run through this and then I will share my observations and the developments. But the point that I do want to make right at the beginning is that Donald Trump has become overly sensitive to any criticism against himself, and there's this constant attempt to suppress any and all criticism of the Trump administrations and its policies, particularly with regards to doing whatever Israel wants America to do. So this whole criticism that that Donald Trump has abandoned America First policies in preference for Israel First policies, and basically that Donald Trump has become the stooge of Netanyahu, doing whatever Netanyahu. So any criticism that goes towards questioning the wisdom of his war on Iran, he's become overly sensitive to it. So after the Pentagon dealt with the Vatican's embassy ambassador in Washington D.C., this is what Donald Trump posted. It's a long post against the Pope. I'll just read parts of it. He said, Pope Leo is weak on crime and terrible for foreign policy. He talks about fear of the Trump administration, but doesn't mention the fear that the Catholic Church and all other Christian organizations had during COVID when they were arresting priests, ministers. I mean, sometimes Donald Trump just goes off on tangents which kind of don't make sense at all. And look at the highlighted part. And then he says, and I don't want a pope who criticizes the president of the United States because I'm doing exactly what I was elected in a landslide. This is very interesting. He says that the Pope has no business to criticize the President of the United States who is fulfilling the mandate of his election. Well, not really. If a majority of Americans vote for a president to pursue genocidal wars, the Pope will and should criticize, and so should people of all goodwill and all ethical communities should be critical of anything that any major country does, which is contrary to law and morality. But to say that the president is doing exactly what I was there, Donald Trump here is blatantly lying. He was not elected to attack Iran. In fact, it's the exact opposite. Donald Trump repeatedly promised that there will be no regime change wars, no unending wars in the Middle East, no wars, no new wars, etc. These were the promises that Donald Trump made repeatedly during the election campaign. So even though he is the elected president of the United States, he's not doing what he was elected to do. He's doing the opposite of what he was elected to do. So even when he's criticizing Pope, Donald Trump is lying in his post. I find that very critical. And then while criticizing the Pope, uh, is not a politician and saying this is hurting the Pope. I don't know how this is hurting the Pope. The Pope is becoming more popular to the point that even the Iranians are beginning to appreciate him. And look at this comment from Ghalibaf, who is the Speaker of the House of Parliament and one of the two negotiators with J.D. Vance, and says, "Thank you for this light." Ghalibaf praised the Pope for condemning what he called the war crimes of the United States and Israel. He said the Pope's message, "I'm not afraid," resonates and lights the way for all those who refuse to remain silent and ignore the killing of innocents. Ghalibaf added, "Your leadership is an inspiration to millions. Thank you for the light." Of course, this is also the Iranians provoking Trump, and you could say they are trolling him indirectly. But there's also this genuine feeling that, in fact, the last two popes have been absolutely. Pope Francis was fantastic, and so is Pope Leo. And Pope Leo is not backing off. He is not backing off, and I'm quite impressed with the Pope's posture that he's an American, remember, all said and done, but he is not afraid. So let me just share a couple of comments that the Pope said. I don't want to get into a debate with him, Pope Leo said on Monday while he was flying to Algiers. "I will continue to speak out loudly against war, looking to promote peace, promoting dialogue and multilateral relationships among the states to look for just solutions to problems. Too many people are suffering in the world today. Too many innocent people are being killed, and I think someone has to stand up and say there's a better way." So the Pope is perfectly in his position. This is his job, to speak up about Christian values and ethics and principles, and condemn war and warmongering. Already, thousands and thousands of innocent people have been killed in Lebanon, and thousands of people are being killed uh, uh, in Iran. And there's so much of suffering through sanctions, etc. So I think the Pope is right. I do want to make a few comments. Donald Trump then went on to post this picture of his, pretending himself to be Jesus Christ. In fact, there is now an official pastor in the White House. I forget what her name is. She's his pastor, and she prays with him. She compared him to Jesus Christ. It's like America is becoming like North Korea. Kim Jong Un is like the god in North Korea, and Trump is trying to do the same thing. He's trying to become God. The height of megalomania is unbelievable. He is pretending that he's healing when what he's actually doing is killing people all over. And of course, there was a lot of criticism. So Donald Trump then deleted this post, and he says, "Oh, this is what Donald Trump said about this post to reporters." He said, "This is a post where he's supposed to be a doctor. And like, what is in his left hand? What are these lights and stuff? Is this a photograph of a doctor?" So this is a very, very strange religious imagery that is being used. This is a holy war for these people. I think they are waging jihad against Iran. So this is something fascinating going on. I want to show you how many of Donald Trump's cabinet people are actually Catholics. These are all the Catholics in Donald Trump's administration. Some of them are very important. J.D. Vance is the vice president, and as I said, he responded by saying the Pope should stick to issues of morality. This is an issue of morality. Killing people, causing harm to the world because you have an ideological agenda, you want Israel to expand territorially, that is a moral issue. Marco Rubio is a practicing Catholic, and a few months ago, I think he came on TV wearing a cross on made of ash or something on his forehead. Robert Kennedy Jr. is a Catholic. John Ratcliffe, the director of CIA, is a Catholic. Sean Duffy, whose picture is not here, I think he is the Secretary of Transportation. I think that is also a Catholic. Tom Homan is a Catholic. Tom Homan is the guy who's in charge of deportations. He's the czar of deportations and border and security police. So these are all Catholics, very prominent Catholics. I wonder how they react when Donald Trump is so dismissive and critical of the Pope and literally attacking him in such a long post. Do they feel do they air their opponent? There are some Republicans and some conservatives who have criticized Donald Trump for attacking the Pope, but I wonder what J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio say to each other in the absence of Trump in privacy, and are they okay? So this is a very, very interesting scenario. Now, let me show you something else about the United States, which you may not know. These are the Supreme Court judges of the United States. There are 9 Supreme Court justices. You know, only 22% of the American population is Catholic, whereas 6 out of 9 Supreme Court judges are Catholic, which means two-thirds of American judges are Catholic. So ultimately, America's morality, political morality, etc., the goodness, the rightness, the interpretation of America's Constitution, all of that is in the hands of of Catholics. So of these 9, let me tell you who are Catholics. John Roberts, the Chief Justice, is Catholic. Sam Alito is Catholic. Brett Kavanaugh is Catholic. Clarence Thomas is Catholic. Amy Coney Barrett is Catholic. And Sotomayor is also Catholic. And Jackson, Justice Jackson, she is non-denominational Protestant. Elena Kagan is Jewish. And Neil Gorsuch apparently was born Catholic, but he moved away to become an Episcopalian. So technically, there are 7, I guess, born Catholics on the Supreme Court out of 9, and 6 people who say they are Catholics. So America, Catholics are overrepresented in the government. And for Donald Trump to attack the Pope and the Catholic, he doesn't need to do that. See, the thing is, it's an unnecessary distraction or unnecessary preoccupation. It's a sign of the insecurity of this administration. He can simply ignore the Pope. In fact, a lot of people would not have noticed. I would not have been doing this show if Donald Trump had not attacked the Pope, even though I had read the comments that the Pope made. And I said, good job. The Pope is standing up to his values, which is what his job is. Anyway, I also wanted to share, this is the photograph of Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy. She was also critical of Donald Trump for the first time. You know, she basically takes orders from Donald Trump, whatever to do, whatever Washington says, she's okay with it. But this time she found some courage to say something. So just let me read out what she said. She said, "I find President Trump's words towards the Holy Father unacceptable." My God, it must have taken her the whole year's courage. the quota, maybe she will not speak up again against Trump. I hope she does, especially on the Hormuz situation, because Italy is one of the 4 countries which has mine clearance, along with UK, France, and Norway, I think, and they might be under pressure to go and participate in removing mines from the Strait of Hormuz. But this is what she said: I find President Trump's words towards the Holy Father unacceptable. The Pope is the head of the Catholic Church, and it is right and normal for him to call for peace and to condemn every form of war. And that is something that, like, what kind of a Christian is the Christian nationalist movement? It's so unchristian. And so it's a good thing that the Pope is at least standing up for Christian values and the true image of Jesus, whereas right now the American government is trying to distort the image of Jesus and trying to confuse the image of Jesus with Donald Trump as God. My goodness. But God is unable to handle Iran. They are in such a mess. Iran has been under sanction for 40 years and has been significantly weakened, undoubtedly. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share, that the crux of the issue is that Donald Trump is unable to handle any form of moral criticism, because the whole goal was to say that the right-wing movement in the United States is against the woke left-wing movement, which is anti-God, anti-religion, anti-tradition, anti-culture, anti-divine values. Whereas this right-wing movement is with God. And, if you remember, that clown Vivek Ramaswamy kept talking about the Bible and God and this and that. So they are trying to associate themselves with God, and then they're making policies which are unholy. And so that is why I think the Trump administration is so much more sensitive. I forgot to say, even Caroline Levitt apparently is Catholic. So it's going to be interesting to see whether there is any long-term effect on Trump's popularity, because 56% of Catholics in the United States voted for Donald Trump. 56%. That's a pretty large chunk. And will the support for Donald Trump, because primarily it is, I think, because of abortion issues, that the Catholics have been voting for Donald Trump. But the anti-immigrant positions that Donald Trump has taken should have potentially eroded the support, but because the Catholic Church is quite supportive of immigrants, regardless of their status. So we will see what happens going forward. Will there be a backlash from the Catholics come November, when we have our midterm elections? Anyway, thank you for watching. Donald Trump has opened battles on many, many fronts. He's fighting his own MAGA. He's fighting the Catholic Church. He's fighting the hotels in the United States have terrible. Here in Europe seem to have terrible internet facilities, and unfortunately, I'm not rich enough to afford Starlink, and I'm not very sure that Starlink is allowed in all countries. So anyway, the yeah, sorry for it was dropped. Anyway, that's the point I wanted to make. Donald Trump has become very sensitive to moral criticism of his policies, and it's a pity that there's nobody in his administration who's able to speak up, especially Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance, who are so high up in the administration. Caroline Levitt, these are all close associates. Kennedy Jr., all of them are Catholics, and Donald Trump is so dismissive of the so-called Holy Father, and it's a pity. Anyway, thank you for watching Conversations. I hope you like this commentary. Please like this video, press the bell icon, subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to share it with others. And until next time, I'm your host, Muqtada Khan. Take care.